Hey all, Sean Maloney, Digital Business Masters. Hope you're well. The last DBM strategy call of 2025. Amazing year we've had. Very, very informative year. And we take a lot with us, a lot, into 2026. So well done for staying the course. Hopefully this is your weekly dose of motivation, action points, direction, all the things we try to do, but always building on the highest level of macro, because that's the level you need to be at in order to make sure that you don't get caught up in the weeds, which is easy to do in this space because everyone's got an opinion. So the whole idea is we will go through the biggest and most powerful information in the world. There's no question about that. Fix the money, fix most of the world. And then in the second part, of course, with that information, you can move forward and apply it. You need to apply these things, right? It's not easy. You're going to find challenges, but that's what it is to run a business. We just happen to be running a digital business here. And your job is to master that first of all, and then understand how you can maintain that into your desired goal. We're not here to give you any advice on how that works. We're here just to educate you and show you that it does. What you do is your business, not our business. We can't do it for you, but we can certainly show you what we've done. And then the job is for you to do that or not. We know it's very powerful because of a very simple premise that currency debases. Currency being fiat currency, full fiat currency. Since 1971. If you don't know the difference between currency and money, that's your first problem. So go and educate yourself. That's where we spend a lot of time in the academy, teaching people the difference between money and currency. And then the top of this schematic becomes self-obvious then, because there's absolutely no way, if you're earning less than $100,000 a year, probably more than that now, that you're going to be able to live a standard that you may wish or have been assured when you went through school, and then have enough savings at the end of hopefully a long career for you then to be able to retire. It's not going to happen because the purchasing power is devalued at up to 8% a year of your average dollar, pound, yen, euro. So you need to convert a proportion of the energy and effort that comes to you in currency and then convert that to sound money. And ideally that then is put into various places that allow you to cash flow from that at the same time as protecting your balance sheet so that you can create critical mass that then allows you to outpace hidden inflation and stated inflation that gives you then your purchasing power as time passes. Okay, so there's some very clever ways that we do this. And Module 5, which starts in January of the Wealth Builder series, is all about the various ways that we create fixed and variable income. Right? There's lots of ways you can do it. It's a case of making sure you pick which is right for you and then sustain it. There's no point starting it and then stopping. You have to sustain the factory. Your machines have to be sustained and managed. Okay, as long as there's a viability, as long as something underneath it, which obviously we wouldn't be talking about it if there wasn't. Because fundamentally it's about accruing sound money, which we prefer to use Bitcoin for that. We also add gold to that, which we have done since the very beginning of DBM. But the whole idea is Bitcoin is much, much more valuable than gold because of its use case and its ability to be liquid when we wish it to be liquid, and we can collateralize when we wish it to be collateralized. It's totally transparent. Even now that they're creating derivatives and paper Bitcoin, it's impossible for them to fix the system like it is with gold because everybody can see on chain exactly how much Bitcoin exists in true form. Okay, original Bitcoin as opposed to paper Bitcoin. So we've enjoyed an average of 68% CAGR since 2009. Okay, we've had a couple of years, and 2005 has been one of them, where that's just simply gone sideways. There has been no CAGR. Okay, well that's okay. As long as you understand the macro and understand the big picture, then you know you're in the right direction. We then apply equity towards yield. And we do that through smart contracts, predominantly using stablecoins. And we also do that through altcoins, which is a more sophisticated way, much more risky. Okay, but the methodology behind staking and creating value as a community into whatever, right? As you'll hear in part 2, it can be sport, it can be solar panels, it can be real estate, it can be gaming, it can be music, It can be a multiple different things, just like you would if you were a startup fintech investor, right? You're doing it on chain and you're doing it with coins with as low a supply as possible and with as much demand as possible. It's not rocket science, but people can really make it complicated. And there's so many opinions from people, not least with which the Bitcoin maxes, but that's okay. There's a whole landscape to work with, and that's what we focus on at DBM. As I say, that's a lot to take in for the average person. We understand that. Hey, to everyone on YouTube, by the way, drop us a like and drop us a bell if you want more of this content to your computer every single week. But if you're just starting out and you're just getting rolling, or if you've been going for a while and you feel like you need a bit of a reset, this time of year is a good time as any for a reset, I suppose. The whole idea is that this 12 module Wealth Builder series takes you through the whole spectrum from mindset to wealth. Okay, so it's mindset, skills. That's the bit where most people fall down. As you know, in life in general, people have a reticence to get more skills. And then once you've got the skills, you can start to apply experience and knowledge and awareness from those mindsets and skills into systems, which is what we talk about in part 2. And because you've worked on your mindset and you've worked on your skills, you're much more resilient. If you just try and buy success and just go straight into these projects, then you're going to find life very, very challenging. In fact, you're probably going to give up, frankly. So the whole idea is that you need to be part of the difference, okay? And that means putting a lot of effort into mindset and skill. Then you'll be more confident in the systems. And once you've got the systems managed and you're maintaining that for long enough, you'll then be able to get into income. And then we're looking for consistent income. That's the real goal that then converts to wealth. So the Wealth Builder series does what it says on the tin. It's very, very popular, very powerful. We're in module 4 as of December 2025, and next month we go into module 4. Next month we go into module 5, and it's all about how we create fixed and variable income, day in, day out. Before we go into the macro for this week, important just to remind everybody of perspective of where we've been. So if you are new to the space and you have found it challenging over the years, or you're finding it challenging even just this year, because you may have come in, as most retail people do, on the back of a high. Okay, a lot of people come in when you get these highs. It's always been the case all the way back over the past decade. A lot of people came in 2017, 2018. A lot of people piled in 2023. A lot of people piled in 2025, right? These are the last points you should be piling in. You need to be coming in down here and right where we are now, right? When you're up down at the 90s, because inevitably the next runs and the next runs and the next runs, it's always about higher lows, right? And that's the way to be successful. I understand why people come in on excitement, but the whole idea is don't be buying on excitement or greed. Be buying off the back of logic and understanding and fundamentals and all the things that you should know when you're doing your mindset and skills. So Bitcoin will look after you. Everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. And the case of Bitcoin is, once you own it, never sell it, ever, right? And people get confused by that as well. Because, well, I need to live. Well, no, you don't live off your balance sheet, right? That's the whole point. You convert the balance sheet to a P&L and live off the cash flow. That's the idea. It's a business. So the macro side of it just gives us every single week without fail, more and more and more fuel, more and more and more energy in validating and vindicating what I've just said. And we don't need to go looking for bias. We don't need to go looking to, justify our position because this is what we do. No, we're way past that. It's pretty obvious that the cycles are what they are, and they have been since 1971. Again, get the skills, go back through history, read the books, understand monetary and fiscal policy. Yeah, that can be done in a relatively fun way these days because of online. And get yourself the information. Go to the Where to Start section, watch things like Hidden Secrets of Money, recognize the difference between currency and money, and then recognize the cycles. We're in one right now. Right now. Yeah. And this is exemplified by the various points that we repeat week in, week out. For years, we spoke about this, and every single time it moves to the direction we want it to because we understand how to work the center of the money supply. The question is, have you got the patience and resilience to keep working through the cycles? And you wouldn't be surprised to hear that happening on about a 3 to 4 year cycle, right? And we're now in another one post 2021, 2020. So all the other stuff around the edges of that is further fuel. So on NASDAQ files to extend trading hours to 23 hours per day on weekdays. Now they're doing this because the digital space never stops, ever. Whereas historically, for whatever reason, because the technology didn't exist for it to be another way, back when it came about, back in Amsterdam and London, when the first exchanges were being brought into play in Sweden. But now it does. So they're moving, the traditional TradFi, we call it, traditional finance is moving towards the technology. It won't be very long until stocks and shares and whatever you recognized as those being, even though they're completely transformed from what they were even a few years ago. They're not even based in reality anymore. But they're all moving on to what's called on-chain. So they'll be tokenized, right? Everything will be visible, everything. And what we're hoping to see actually ultimately is even voting being put on chain, because then there can be no hiding place. Now, do the powers that be want that? That's what we're going to find out. But in the meantime, we're working with what works. And Bitcoin is that only solution right now, the only solution. Bitcoin institutional holdings reached, in fact, just under 6 million. Bitcoin, right? So keep an eye on that. 19 million Bitcoin around that at the moment exist in reality. There's some that are lost, and there'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, right? Our job actually as ordinary people over this next 5-year cycle is going to be to keep hold of private custody Bitcoin, not convert it to the banks, not, like people did with gold and everything else over the past few decades. Keep the Bitcoin in your hands, okay? It takes a skill to do that. It takes a mindset to do that. But currently that's 30% of the circulating supply already owned. Michael Saylor's already said he wants 7 million Bitcoin under strategist control. He said that last week. The Bitcoin Lightning Network capacity has made another new all-time high. Now, Lightning is important because while we say you never sell your Bitcoin, which you don't, but what you can do is use the Bitcoin, right? So there won't be any reasons for us not to utilize the Bitcoin. A lot of people don't understand that. And it's a case of making sure that we support the Lightning Network as and when we can. Bitcoin fundamentals keep improving, okay? The price action is all noise. It is literally all noise. Always has been, always will be. Don't be a price junkie, right? Keep an eye on the fundamentals. Pay attention to adoption, regulation, institutional behavior, okay? All the rest of it, and you will treat yourself a bit nicer when it comes to psychology. I think a lot of people struggle with this space because they get so hung up on quick wins, near term. They want everything yesterday. Predominantly, that's because they've got to a time of life, in my experience, where they've not quite got where they want to be. So they're trying to do something fast. Nothing works fast in this life. You need to put yourself in a position of professionalism, organization, discipline, constant routine, skills, mindset. Norway's sovereign wealth fund just backed the Bitcoin treasury company Metaplanet's proposal. Okay, so this is interesting because Norway should be, is, whether it is or whether it should be, I know it doesn't nothing matter, but it is a real stalwart in what's called sovereign wealth funds. Right? They did brilliantly with the North Sea, with the oil that they found, right? As compared to the UK, which just shipped it off to the highest bidder, and now it's on the Cayman Islands. The Norwegians kept the value in country through a sovereign wealth fund, which now goes a long way to funding their social requirements, education, health, blah, 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 right? Totally the opposite in the UK. So it shows you how clever they are. And every other country should have a sovereign wealth fund. Not very many countries have. And all countries should have a Bitcoin sovereign wealth fund. Now that will come, it's just inevitable, but the people have to make themselves heard. So write to your MP, ask them 2 questions. Why have we not got a sovereign wealth fund that's working for the people? And why are you not mining Bitcoin with stranded energy at 2 o'clock in the morning? What is wrong with you? Right? They won't know what you're talking about. Either they're complicit or ignorant. I still don't know which one it is for the average MP. But we've got to make a voice. And if they're not going to do it, which is increasingly unlikely, we do it for ourselves. That's what DBM's core is about, right? You look after your own sovereign wealth fund. Coinbase launches stock trading in the US. So again, these are just glimmers of steps into the places we need to be with regards to more and more and more, let's say, retail awareness, public awareness of what's going on with this particular asset class. Quantum FUD, an interesting statement we picked up last week. Quantum FUD has replaced the environmental FUD. Now, this is, again, his perspective. Stay above the canopy. Again, if you're here a long time and you know what you're doing, you're fine. But for people listening to this who are newish to the space and haven't got that much bearing on what's going on, you are going to get trampled all over by FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right? For years and years and years, we lived with this ridiculous claim that Bitcoin is bad for the environment. These people are moronic. Right? These are the same people, by the way, putting you through these environmental policies. Just have a look at what's been going on in Europe for the past 4 years, who are making you more and more challenged when it comes to your ability to have, what do they call it? It's a living crisis, a cost of living crisis. Everything's a crisis. There's no crisis. It's being put on you, starting with the fiat system and ending with complex systems such as the environmental policies. All right? It's ridiculous. Now they're bringing out the next round of FUD for Bitcoin. It can be destroyed by quantum. Again, utter garbage. All you have to do is a little bit of research to understand that if quantum computing comes in, there's a lot more to worry about than Bitcoin. Believe you me. But the whole idea is, as with every technology that man has ever created, it always evolves. There's nothing stopping the Bitcoin protocol evolving into quantum. Nothing, right? Arguably already is. Brazil crypto activity jumped 43% in 2025 by the average person. So this is interesting. This is a good example of a country that's had its problems. There's a lot of South American countries that had problems ever since Milton Friedman was let off the leash. And the whole idea is people are starting to understand what I've been talking about for the past 10 minutes and start to empower from the household up, right? It's not difficult. You sometimes think there's something in the water that makes people despondent and lethargic and lazy, right? All you've got to do is get out of bed and have a look at what's going on, get educated, get skilled, and start being disciplined in running your own digital business. Really not difficult. Everybody with an internet connection can do it, by the way. There's more phones than bank accounts. There's more internet connections than bank accounts. What's not to get? Continuing, a potential case for Bitcoin with their all-time highs in the next 20 days comes in 3 parts. Okay, so we get a lot of this. You get cycles coming in all the time. All right, we've been through what we've been through. We're still going through it. It's okay, all right? We can see the data. The sharks are accumulating. The sharks are just one step down from the whales. The RSI bounce is incoming. Okay, so that's interesting. That's on a macro level. That directly impacts, let's say, assets that are highly sensitive to liquidity, aka Bitcoin and gold. And quantitative easing, or whatever you want to call it now, right? Don't let them fool you. It's the same thing. Yeah, the Fed just today, as planned, is injecting 6.8 billion into the markets at 9 a.m. New York time today. Bitcoin's price is already reflecting it. We can see what's going on, just popping above 90 again right now. Yeah, this marks the first such liquidity adding repurchase agreement, a repo they call it, since 2020. That's the cycle I'm talking about. Now, we knew this was coming. Yeah, it was announced late November. It was put into policy on the 1st of December. And now we're on wherever we are, 22nd of December. And it's happening in front of our eyes. And you can see the effect, right? You don't lean back on it and say that's a done deal. It's not that simple. There's all sorts of things going on in the background. But the whole idea is this, what gives us the confidence. Those of you who were acquiring down at 88, 87, 86 have now seen that and are moving back the other way. There's plenty of time still to accrue. In fact, the simplest thing to do is just the dollar cost average. All right. So it's the broader efforts around treasury bill purchases. This is what devalues fiat's purchasing power. Exactly that. And that's the 5th time they've done this since 2010. Right? It's just another form of QE. So we can see all this going on with regards to QE itself. Roughly 4 to 8 trillion of liquidity is coming in 2026, mainly driven by these types of fiscal and monetary policies. 4 to 8 trillion. Now we know there's a double-edged sword going on. They can't afford their own debt. Okay, so the interest rates down falsely. There's no reason for bringing interest rates down because stated inflation is apparently under control, which again is garbage. But it just shows you that they're moving in old-fashioned ways that are not relevant to today's life. They've buried themselves in their own debt. Right? This is the swamp. 2.6 trillion. $666 trillion dollar city says Bitcoin could hit 189 in the next 12 months. Well, okay, fair enough, whatever. We've had a lot of this going on. We learned a lot of this through 2025. A lot of big numbers. They are inevitably going to arrive. Your job as a professional digital business owner is not to overextend yourself, not to put yourself into too much leverage, and just make sure you own more Bitcoin next month than this month. Do whatever you've got to do. Arthur Hayes argues that the Fed's new reserve management purchases, this effectively QE under a different name, warning they enable unchecked money printing that could drive BTC towards 200,000. Again, it's the same thing said a different way. Right. Basically liquidity. It's liquidity. It's hard to say, oh, it's not that simple, but it is actually that simple. It is actually that simple. As they bring more and more and more liquidity into the big macro system, it just makes our lives easier and easier and easier. Steve Cohen's Point72 Asset Management purchased 390,000 shares of MicroStrategy for approximately 65 million. So again, Point72, just another normal TradFi management, asset management company moving in the direction because they now know nothing stops this train. Okay, so macro is always very interesting. I could spend a whole day talking about macro, but these are the top points we picked up from the last week. Not so much on geopolitical. Things have calmed down, obviously, as we get towards this time of year, but big ones have come through this last week. For the first time in 30 years, Japan is in positive interest rates at 0.75. I mean, enough said, right? There's all the usual stuff when these things take place that they're going to affect this, they're going to affect that. Well, they may do. But the big picture says it all at the end of the day, right? They are falsely creating this mark, okay? It's called multipolarization. Basically, it's another pressure point on the dollar. As the chickens go home to roost, the dollar go back to the US, they end up with huge inflation, and that destroys that currency, okay? Now, they're not going to let that happen, which is why they keep printing liquidity into the world. And in our lifetimes, as long as you own sound money, you're relatively safe. If you just own fiat, you are screwed, right? Unless you've already made significant amounts that are going to look after you for the rest of your life. But that's not for many people. Pro-Bitcoin Michael Seelig, just officially confirmed as head of CFTC. Big position confirmation last week. And we're going to get another big announcement, we expect, as we ramp up towards April time, I think it is, when the new Fed chair comes in. And they're both pro-Bitcoin. They both get this, right? What happens after that, which is the usual shenanigans between politics and banking, is anyone's guess. But at least it's much more front foot positive. You're going to get, the Genius Act. We're going to get all these different clarifications coming around. There's going to be a lot more adoption of digital assets in the world. And we're just perfectly positioned because we've been accumulating way ahead of them, which means as long as you know what you're doing, you're able to protect purchasing power through what's called accretion. The UK to regulate Bitcoin and crypto assets starting in October 2027. I mean, anyway, it is what it is. It's almost irrelevant. Britain says it will coordinate with the US on its regulatory approach. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it just shows you the poor level of sophistication we've now got in the political class and Whitehall class and administrative class of what Britain's become. Okay, but we've known about this since the 80s. The whole idea is, doesn't really matter to us because we work globally. Right? That's what's so fascinating about what we do. It's a globally affected balance sheet, right? You're not hamstrung by some bank in the UK or regulation in the UK or France or Germany or anywhere else or even the US. It's globally connected. This is the beauty of owning globally connected balance sheets. So many people still don't understand that. I'm not talking about retail. I'm talking about business as well, right? But they will, and they are. This is why you're finding companies start to put Bitcoin on their balance sheets because they recognize it's the same as owning one big conjoined company. And you don't have to be under delay because of unsophisticated policy and unsophisticated policymakers, which we've certainly got in Europe right now. Incredibly unsophisticated, which makes them ignorant or highly complicit. You'll have to decide which they are. Either way is wrong, so you do it yourself, right? The Federal Reserve has withdrawn 2023 restrictive policies which limited novel crypto activities. Now, we've been into this a long time. We've had some real nosebleeds from sophisticated altcoin activities, and we still go through that, right? But when you look at it at the level we look at it at, you realize that it's all about basic economics. What people decide to do to regulate and legislate and their ability to agree with it or become complicit to fight it is not our problem. It's all about people voting with their feet at the end of the day, which is why we have such vindication and, our ability to stick with things no matter what, right? And it says a lot about the person when you can or can't do that. This is what it boils down to. That's why most people don't run their own businesses. Okay. Now, as I say, that wraps it up for this week on the macro and geopolitical level. We do have a very neat and tidy way of helping as many people as possible go through this process, because this isn't just a one and hit. You can't come in and just start buying speculatively and hoping for the best. You've got to get all the skills and systems organized, right? Hence, we have this stepped approach to making what we do as affordable as possible. We do our very best to make it as affordable as possible. We don't have to do that, but I think it's a good thing if we can speak to as many people as possible down at $25 a month and then help them get up to places where they can afford more than that, because obviously the more successful people are at the right-hand side of this chart, then we'll do that. And Module 5, like I say, just a quick reminder, if you're not in the Wealth Builder series yet, click the link below. Get yourself started in the Wealth Builder series. It's totally free and accessible at $25 a month. And you get increasingly, more sophisticated access as you go through the ranks. But the next month is all about how we create reliable, variable, and fixed incomes, right? But you've got to work. You've got to understand what it means to keep it reliable and keep it consistent. That's the bit that obviously can be a challenge, but we'll help people through, no problem at all. All right. So last thing to say, have a great Christmas break. We'll be back early in the new year. Hopefully you're enjoying our content. If you do, hit the bell, hit the like, and we'll see you on the next call.